The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly beneath a moonless sky on May 19, 1944, its black waters concealing the steel predators that prowled beneath the surface. Lieutenant Commander Walton Pendleton gripped the bridge rail of USS England as his sonar operator's voice cut through the humid night air. Contact bearing 270, range 1,200 yards. The destroyer escort's crew moved with practiced precision, their Hedgehog mortars loaded and ready, while somewhere in the depths below, 36 Japanese sailors aboard submarine I-16 prepared for what they believed would be another routine patrol. The acrid smell of cordite would soon mingle with salt spray as England's projectiles found their mark, sending the enemy submarine to the ocean floor in a thunderous eruption of metal and seawater. What those Japanese sailors could never have imagined was that they had just become the first victims in the most devastating anti-submarine killing spree in naval history. Could a single destroyer escort truly achieve what entire fleets had failed to accomplish? The morning of May 19, 1944, found USS England cutting through the Solomon Sea with lethal purpose, her crew unaware they were about to redefine the very nature of submarine warfare. The destroyer escort's steel hull parted the jade-green waters off Bougainville with mechanical precision, her 200-ton frame riding the Pacific swells like a predator scenting blood. Lieutenant Commander Walton Pendleton stood on the bridge wing, his weathered hands gripping the rail as salt spray misted across his khaki uniform. The former merchant marine officer possessed an intuitive understanding of ocean currents and underwater topography that his Naval Academy peers often lacked, a knowledge gained through countless voyages across these same waters during peacetime. His unconventional background would prove invaluable in the coming days as England transformed from convoy protector to submarine killer. Below deck, the ship's sonar compartment hummed with electronic activity as sonarman First Class John Williamson adjusted the sensitivity of his QHB-1 sonar array. The 23-year-old from Ohio had spent the previous 18 months learning to interpret the ocean's acoustic signatures, distinguishing between schools of fish, thermal layers, and the metallic echoes that betrayed enemy vessels. His ears had become finely calibrated instruments, capable of detecting the subtle variations in sound waves that revealed a submarine's presence at distances exceeding 2 miles. The cramped compartment reeked of electrical ozone and human sweat, but Williamson remained focused on the ghostly patterns dancing across his oscilloscope screen. Engine rooms deep within England's hull generated the steady thrumming that propelled her through the water at 18 knots, her twin diesel engines producing 6,000 horsepower, while her crew of 186 men maintained combat readiness around the clock. The ship's magazine contained her most revolutionary weapon, the Hedgehog anti-submarine mortar system, recently installed during her last overhaul at Mare Island Naval Shipyard. Unlike traditional depth charges that exploded at predetermined depths and alerted submarines to take evasive action, the Hedgehog's 24 projectiles only detonated upon direct contact with enemy hulls. This innovation eliminated the warning period that had previously allowed skilled submarine commanders to escape destruction. Chief Fire Controlman Robert Natter supervised the Hedgehog installation forward of the bridge, where the spigot mortar system resembled a massive porcupine bristling with steel quills. Each projectile contained 35 pounds of Torpex explosive, sufficient to rupture a submarine's pressure hull when properly aimed. The system's effectiveness depended entirely on accurate sonar tracking and precise navigation, requiring seamless coordination between multiple departments aboard the destroyer escort. Natter's crew had drilled extensively with the weapon. but none had yet experienced its devastating potential against living targets. The tactical situation surrounding England's patrol area reflected the desperate nature of Japan's position in the Western Pacific by May 1944. Admiral Chester Nimitz's island-hopping campaign had systematically reduced Japanese strongholds throughout the Central Pacific, leaving isolated garrisons dependent on submarine supply runs for survival. Imperial Japanese Navy submarines maintained defensive patrol lines designed to intercept Allied shipping and provide early warning of major fleet movements. These steel sharks operated with increasing desperation as fuel shortages and mechanical breakdowns compromised their effectiveness, yet they remained dangerous adversaries capable of inflicting significant damage on unwary Allied vessels. England's mission orders came directly from Commander Destroyer Squadron 23, directing her to join USS George and USS Rabi in hunting Japanese submarines reported operating along established shipping lanes between New Guinea and the Solomon Islands. Intelligence reports indicated at least 6 enemy submarines maintained patrol stations in the area, their presence confirmed by radio intercepts decoded at Pearl Harbor's cryptographic center. The 3-ship hunter-killer group represented a new tactical approach to anti-submarine warfare, concentrating specialized vessels in areas where enemy submarines were most likely to operate. The crew's previous experience consisted primarily of tedious convoy escort duties, shepherding merchant vessels between Pacific ports while maintaining constant vigilance against submarine attack. These operations had taught them the value of patience and systematic search patterns, but provided limited opportunities for aggressive action against enemy vessels. Many crew members had joined the Navy expecting to serve aboard battleships or cruisers, only to find themselves assigned to a relatively unglamorous destroyer escort. Their disappointment would soon transform into fierce pride as England began accumulating an unprecedented record of submarine kills. Captain Pendleton's leadership style emphasized technical competence over traditional military formality, encouraging his officers to develop innovative solutions to tactical problems. His willingness to experiment with new sonar techniques and attack patterns created an atmosphere of professional creativity rarely found aboard warships. The commanding officer's background in civilian shipping had exposed him to diverse navigation methods and weather prediction techniques that proved invaluable in submarine hunting operations. The psychological pressure of anti-submarine warfare affected every man aboard England differently, with some thriving under the constant tension while others struggled to maintain focus during extended patrols. The knowledge that enemy submarines lurked beneath the surface created an atmosphere of perpetual alertness, where routine maintenance tasks took on heightened significance. A malfunctioning sonar set or misfiring hedgehog projector could mean the difference between victory and destruction in the crucial seconds when contact was established with an enemy submarine. As England continued her patrol pattern through waters that had claimed numerous Allied vessels over the previous 2 years, her crew remained unaware that they were about to participate in the most successful anti-submarine campaign of the Pacific War. Within hours, their routine patrol would explode into deadly action as Japanese submarine I-16 surfaced directly into their path, setting in motion a 12-day killing spree that would revolutionize naval warfare doctrine and establish USS England as the most feared submarine hunter in the Pacific theater. Within 72 hours of her first kill, England's sonar operators had developed an almost supernatural ability to distinguish between thermal layers and enemy steel, their ears becoming the ship's deadliest weapons. The destruction of I-16 on May 19th had electrified England's crew with a primal satisfaction that surprised even veteran sailors accustomed to combat. Chief sonarman John Williamson found himself unable to sleep in the 48 hours following the attack, his mind replaying the acoustic signature that had betrayed the Japanese submarine's presence. The distinctive Doppler shift of I-16's propeller cavitation had registered as a subtle variation in the background ocean noise, barely perceptible above the thermal layer distortions that plagued sonar operations in tropical waters. Williamson's ability to isolate that specific frequency pattern would prove crucial as England began systematically hunting the remaining submarines in Japan's patrol line. Lieutenant Commander Pendleton recognized that his ship's success depended entirely on maintaining the psychological edge gained through their initial victory. He ordered continuous drills in the hours between patrol sweeps, forcing his crew to practice the precise coordination required between sonar detection, navigation plotting, and weapons deployment. The captain understood that submarine hunting demanded split-second timing, where hesitation or miscommunication could allow an enemy vessel to escape into the ocean's depths. His relentless training regimen created muscle memory that would serve England's crew well during the intense engagements that lay ahead. The Hedgehog anti-submarine mortar had performed flawlessly during the attack on I-16, with 3 of the 24 projectiles striking the submarine's hull and detonating simultaneously. Chief Fire Controlman Robert Natter analyzed the weapon's performance data with scientific precision, noting that the contact-fused warheads had exploded exactly as designed upon impact with the enemy's pressure hull. The resulting underwater explosions had ruptured I-16's ballast tanks and flooded her engine compartments within seconds, preventing any possibility of emergency surface procedures. This devastating effectiveness vindicated the Navy's investment in Hedgehog technology and provided England with a decisive advantage over submarines equipped to detect conventional depth charge attacks. England's second encounter occurred on May 22nd, when sonar contact revealed RO-106 attempting to transit through the Bismarck Sea at periscope depth. The Japanese submarine's commander had apparently learned of I-16's destruction through radio communications and adopted more cautious tactics, maintaining minimal speed and avoiding surface exposure during daylight hours. However, his efforts to remain undetected proved futile against England's enhanced sonar capabilities and systematic search patterns. Sonarman Williamson detected the enemy vessel at a range of 1,800 yards, tracking its movement through a complex series of course changes designed to break sonar contact. The psychological transformation of England's crew became evident during their pursuit of RO-106, as sailors who had previously expressed nervousness about submarine encounters now displayed confident aggression. Gunner's Mate Second Class James Stewart reported feeling electrically charged during the approach phase, his hands steady as he prepared the Hedgehog projectors for firing. The crew's growing expertise in acoustic tracking allowed them to maintain contact despite RO-106's evasive maneuvers, following the submarine through thermal layers that had previously disrupted their sonar equipment. Captain Pendleton's tactical innovations during the RO-106 engagement demonstrated his evolving mastery of submarine warfare principles. Rather than approaching directly along the enemy's projected course, he ordered a flanking maneuver that positioned England to intercept the submarine's most likely escape route. This strategic thinking reflected his merchant marine background, where successful navigation required anticipating weather patterns and ocean currents rather than simply following prescribed routes. The commanding officer's willingness to deviate from standard Navy doctrine created tactical advantages that his submarine opponents could not predict or counter effectively. The destruction of RO-106 occurred at 0347 hours on May 22nd, when England's Hedgehog barrage caught the Japanese submarine attempting to dive beneath a thermal layer. 2 projectiles struck the enemy vessel's forward torpedo room, causing catastrophic flooding that sent RO-106 to the ocean floor within 90 seconds. The rapid sinking prevented any distress signals from reaching other Japanese submarines in the area, maintaining the element of surprise that England would exploit throughout her rampage. Debris recovery operations yielded valuable intelligence documents that revealed the positions of additional enemy submarines operating in nearby waters. Within 3 days of her first kill, England had developed hunting procedures that maximized her technological advantages while minimizing exposure to enemy torpedoes. The destroyer escort's crew learned to exploit the ocean's acoustic properties, using temperature gradients and bottom topography to mask their approach while maintaining sonar contact with target submarines. Sonarman Williamson pioneered techniques for tracking multiple contacts simultaneously, enabling England to prioritize threats and plan attack sequences with unprecedented efficiency. His innovations in passive sonar operation would later be incorporated into fleet-wide training programs for anti-submarine warfare specialists. The mathematical precision of England's success rate began attracting attention from higher naval commands, who recognized that her achievements represented a fundamental breakthrough in submarine warfare tactics. In just 5 days, the destroyer escort had encountered 2 Japanese submarines and destroyed both without suffering any casualties or equipment damage. Her perfect kill ratio contradicted established theories about submarine warfare, which predicted significant losses among surface vessels attempting to engage enemy submarines in their preferred operating environment. England's crew had achieved what many naval strategists considered theoretically impossible: establishing a new paradigm for anti-submarine operations that would influence Pacific Fleet doctrine for the remainder of the war. The psychological impact of England's success extended beyond her immediate crew to encompass the broader Allied naval forces operating in the Western Pacific. Radio communications buzzed with reports of the destroyer escort's achievements, creating a sense of momentum that boosted morale throughout the fleet. Simultaneously, intercepted Japanese radio traffic indicated growing concern among enemy submarine commanders, who began implementing more conservative patrol procedures in response to their mounting losses. This shift in enemy behavior would prove advantageous to England during subsequent encounters. As Japanese submarines adopted predictable evasion patterns that Pendleton's crew learned to anticipate and counter with devastating effectiveness. By May 23rd, whispered rumors aboard Japanese submarines spoke of a phantom destroyer that struck without warning, turning the Pacific's most experienced submarine veterans into hunted prey. The radio silence that followed RO-106's destruction sent ripples of unease through the Imperial Japanese Navy's submarine command structure. Vice Admiral Takeo Takagi, commanding the 6th Fleet submarine operations from Truk Atoll, found himself staring at intelligence reports that defied logical explanation. 2 experienced submarine commanders had vanished within the span of 4 days, their vessels disappearing without transmitting distress signals or even acknowledging enemy contact. The mathematical probability of such coincidental losses suggested either catastrophic equipment failures or the presence of an exceptionally capable Allied anti-submarine unit operating in waters previously considered secure. Lieutenant Commander Yoshiaki Inaba, captain of submarine RO-104, received his final patrol orders on the morning of May 23rd, with growing apprehension about the fate of his missing comrades. The 34-year-old officer possessed 8 years of submarine experience and had successfully completed 11 war patrols without major incident. His crew of 36 men represented some of the Imperial Navy's most skilled submarine personnel, trained in the rigorous traditions that had made Japanese submarines feared throughout the Pacific. However, Inaba's confidence eroded as he studied the patrol coordinates that placed his vessel directly in the area where I-16 and RO-106 had vanished. England's sonar operators detected RO-104's approach at 14:23 hours on May 23rd, when the enemy submarine's periscope briefly broke the surface during a navigational observation. Sonarman John Williamson immediately recognized the acoustic signature characteristic of the RO-class submarines, their distinctive propeller noise patterns etched in his memory through countless hours of sound analysis training. The Japanese vessel maintained a depth of 60 feet while following a zigzag course designed to complicate sonar tracking, but Williamson's enhanced acoustic skills allowed him to predict the submarine's movement patterns with remarkable accuracy. Captain Pendleton's tactical evolution became apparent during the pursuit of RO-104, as he employed increasingly sophisticated maneuvers to position England for optimal attack angles. The destroyer escort approached from the submarine's port quarter while maintaining a speed of 12 knots, her engines throttled to minimize cavitation noise that might alert the enemy to her presence. Pendleton had learned to exploit the thermal layers that plagued both Allied and Japanese sonar systems, using temperature differentials to mask England's acoustic signature, while maintaining contact with his target through superior equipment and operator skill. The crew's psychological transformation reached full manifestation during their third submarine encounter, with sailors displaying an almost predatory enthusiasm for their deadly mission. Chief Fire Controlman Robert Natter reported observing remarkable improvements in his gun crew's performance, noting their ability to prepare and fire hedgehog patterns with mechanical precision despite the intense pressure of combat operations. The men had developed an intuitive understanding of their weapon system's capabilities, adjusting firing solutions based on target movement and water conditions with expertise that typically required months of peacetime training. Intelligence intercepts revealed the growing concern within Japanese submarine command as reports of missing vessels accumulated throughout May 1944. Radio operators at Pearl Harbor's Fleet Radio Unit Pacific decoded increasingly frantic communications between Japanese submarines and their shore-based controllers, revealing attempts to establish alternative patrol routes that would avoid the mysterious threat zone. However, these tactical adjustments played directly into England's advantages, as the enemy's predictable evasion patterns created opportunities for interception that Pendleton's crew exploited with ruthless efficiency. The destruction of RO-104 occurred at 16:27 hours on May 23rd, when England's Hedgehog barrage caught the Japanese submarine attempting to escape through a narrow channel between coral formations. 4 projectiles struck the enemy vessel's hull in rapid succession, the contact-fused warheads detonating with sufficient force to rupture both the pressure hull and ballast tanks simultaneously. Commander Inaba and his entire crew perished in the catastrophic implosion that followed, their submarine plummeting to the ocean floor in less than 30 seconds. The devastating effectiveness of England's attack prevented any distress signals from revealing the destroyer escort's position to other Japanese units operating in the vicinity. Within 24 hours of RO-104's destruction, England encountered her 4th submarine target when RO-116 attempted to cross the Bismarck Sea during the pre-dawn hours of May 24th. Lieutenant Commander Katsuo Ohashi, the enemy vessel's captain, had received explicit warnings about increased Allied anti-submarine activity in his patrol area, but remained confident in his ability to evade detection through careful navigation and superior seamanship. His 22 years of naval experience included extensive training in submarine warfare tactics. Yet these qualifications proved insufficient against England's technological superiority and crew expertise. Sonarman Williamson detected RO-116's presence at 0548 hours through passive acoustic monitoring, identifying the submarine's location despite its commander's attempts to minimize noise generation. The Japanese vessel maintained strict sound discipline while transiting at a depth of 90 feet, but the subtle vibrations transmitted through the water column revealed its position to England's enhanced sonar equipment. Williamson's ability to distinguish between ambient ocean noise and mechanical signatures had reached an almost supernatural level of sensitivity, allowing him to track enemy submarines under conditions that would have defeated conventional sonar operators. The tactical engagement that destroyed RO-116 demonstrated England's complete mastery of submarine warfare principles, with Captain Pendleton orchestrating a textbook approach that eliminated any possibility of enemy escape. The destroyer escort positioned herself to block the submarine's most likely evasion routes while maintaining optimal firing position for the Hedgehog system. When RO-116 attempted an emergency dive to escape the impending attack, England's crew responded with devastating precision, delivering a hedgehog pattern that caught the enemy vessel during its most vulnerable maneuvering phase. In just 5 days, USS England had destroyed 4 Japanese submarines, more than most destroyer escorts accomplished during their entire wartime service. The 200-ton vessel had eliminated roughly 144 enemy sailors, while her crew of 186 men remained unscathed. Each submarine represented approximately 18 months of construction time and substantial wartime resources, with England removing an estimated 2,400 tons of enemy naval vessels from the Pacific theater. The destroyer escort had fired 4 Hedgehog patterns containing 96 individual projectiles, achieving a hit rate of approximately 12%, compared to the typical 2 to 5% effectiveness rate for conventional depth charge attacks. Her unprecedented success rate had transformed submarine warfare mathematics, proving that properly trained crews equipped with advanced technology could achieve kill ratios previously considered impossible by naval strategists. The 5th Japanese submarine to encounter England's deadly embrace would discover that experience and skill meant nothing against an enemy who had perfected the art of underwater assassination. Lieutenant Commander Takeshi Nakajima stood in the conning tower of submarine RO-108 as his vessel approached the coordinates where 4 of his comrades had vanished without trace. The 41-year-old officer possessed more submarine experience than any active commander in the Imperial Japanese Navy, having served aboard submarines since 1925 and participated in some of the most daring operations of the Pacific War. His weathered hands gripped the periscope handles with the confidence born of 17 years spent beneath the ocean's surface. Yet an unfamiliar tension knotted his stomach as RO-108 entered what Japanese submarine crews had begun calling the death zone. The submarine's crew of 38 men represented the elite of Japan's underwater service, handpicked for their technical expertise and proven courage under fire. Petty Officer First Class Hiroshi Yamamoto operated the hydrophone equipment with the sensitivity of a master musician, his ears trained to detect the subtle acoustic signatures that revealed enemy vessels lurking above the thermal layers. The 26-year-old sonar operator had successfully guided RO-108 through 7 previous war patrols without a single detection by Allied forces, earning him a reputation for supernatural hearing that bordered on legend within submarine circles. In the cramped forward torpedo room, Chief Petty Officer Saburo Tanaka supervised the loading of Type 95 torpedoes, whose 661-pound warheads contained enough explosive power to sink a cruiser. The veteran torpedo man had served aboard submarines since 1930 and possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of torpedo maintenance and firing procedures that made him invaluable to RO-108's combat effectiveness. His crew of 6 men worked with mechanical precision despite the psychological pressure created by their missing comrades, their hands steady as they prepared weapons that might never find their targets. Commander Nakajima's tactical approach reflected the accumulated wisdom of Japan's submarine warfare doctrine, emphasizing stealth and patience over aggressive maneuvering. RO-108 maintained a depth of 80 feet while following a carefully plotted course designed to minimize contact with Allied patrol vessels. The submarine's batteries operated at reduced capacity to eliminate electrical noise, while her crew observed strict silence protocols that prevented even whispered conversations during critical phases of their patrol. These precautions had proven effective against conventional Allied anti-submarine forces, but they would prove inadequate against England's revolutionary hunting methods. The personal cost of Japan's submarine losses extended far beyond military statistics, encompassing families throughout the home islands who awaited news of husbands, sons, and brothers serving in the underwater fleet. Nakajima carried photographs of his wife Michiko and their 2 young daughters, images that reminded him of the peaceful life he hoped to resume when the war ended. His crew members possessed similar emotional connections to the world beyond their steel hull, yet the nature of submarine warfare demanded the suppression of such thoughts during combat operations. England's detection of RO-108 occurred at their 9:32 hours on May 26th, when sonarman Williamson identified the distinctive acoustic signature of Japanese submarine propellers operating at minimum power settings. The enemy vessel's attempt to maintain stealth proved counterproductive against England's enhanced sonar capabilities, as the reduced noise levels actually made it easier to isolate the submarine's mechanical sounds from ambient ocean noise. Williamson's extraordinary acoustic sensitivity allowed him to track RO-108's movement through thermal layers that would have defeated conventional sonar equipment. Captain Pendleton's tactical response demonstrated his complete mastery of submarine hunting techniques, as he maneuvered England into an interception course that blocked the enemy vessel's most likely escape routes. The destroyer escort approached from RO-108's starboard quarter while maintaining a speed of 14 knots, her propellers generating just enough cavitation to mask her presence without completely eliminating mobility. Pendleton had learned to exploit the ocean's acoustic properties with scientific precision, using temperature gradients and salinity variations to conceal England's approach until the moment of attack. The psychological pressure aboard RO-108 intensified as Petty Officer Yamamoto detected faint propeller sounds that indicated the presence of Allied surface vessels in their vicinity. Commander Nakajima ordered an immediate course change designed to evade potential threats, but his evasive maneuvers followed predictable patterns that England's crew had learned to anticipate through their previous encounters. The Japanese submarine's adherence to conventional doctrine proved fatal against an enemy that had transcended traditional anti-submarine warfare limitations. Chief Fire Controlman Natter prepared England's Hedgehog system with the methodical efficiency that had become second nature during 5 previous submarine encounters. His gun crew operated with mechanical precision despite the mounting psychological pressure of their unprecedented success rate. their hands steady as they adjusted firing solutions based on continuous sonar updates. The men displayed remarkable confidence in their weapon system's capabilities, having witnessed its devastating effectiveness against 4 previous targets. The tactical engagement that destroyed RO-108 began at 10:47 hours, when England achieved optimal firing position relative to the enemy submarine's projected course. Captain Pendleton ordered the Hedgehog barrage at a range of 200 yards, timing the attack to catch RO-108 during a routine course correction that exposed her hull to maximum impact angles. The 24 projectiles arced through the morning air before plunging into the Pacific's depths, their contact-fused warheads primed to detonate upon striking the Japanese submarine's pressure hull. 3 Hedgehog projectiles found their target with catastrophic results, exploding simultaneously against RO-108's ballast tanks and flooding chambers. The underwater detonations ruptured the submarine's hull integrity at multiple points, creating an implosion effect that crushed the vessel's internal compartments within seconds. Commander Nakajima and his entire crew perished instantly as their submarine collapsed under the enormous water pressure, their 17 years of combined experience proving worthless against England's technological superiority. The debris field that marked RO-108's grave contained personal effects that revealed the human dimension of England's submarine warfare campaign. Recovery operations yielded waterlogged photographs, letters from home, and personal mementos that testified to the individual lives extinguished by the destroyer escort's relentless efficiency. These artifacts served as sobering reminders that each submarine kill represented dozens of families who would receive official notification of their loved ones' deaths in service to the Emperor. Intelligence analysis of documents recovered from RO-108's wreckage provided valuable insights into Japanese submarine deployment patterns and communication procedures. Codebooks and patrol orders revealed the locations of additional enemy submarines operating in nearby waters, information that would guide England's continued hunting operations throughout the remainder of May 1944. The systematic destruction of Japan's submarine patrol line was removing critical intelligence-gathering assets that the Imperial Navy could not afford to lose during this crucial phase of the Pacific War. As RO-108's oil slick spread across the Pacific surface, USS England had achieved what military statisticians deemed mathematically impossible: a perfect kill ratio in submarine warfare. The psychological toll of England's unprecedented success began manifesting in ways that surprised even the most experienced crew members aboard the destroyer escort. Chief Pharmacist's mate, Harold Stevens, documented increasing cases of nervous exhaustion among sailors who had participated in 5 consecutive submarine kills within a single week. The constant state of combat readiness required for anti-submarine operations created a unique form of stress that differed fundamentally from conventional surface engagements, where battles possessed clear beginning and ending points. England's crew existed in a perpetual state of tension, knowing that enemy submarines lurked beneath the surface while their own vessel remained exposed to torpedo attack during every hunting operation. Lieutenant Commander Pendleton observed troubling changes in his crew's behavior patterns as the psychological pressure of maintaining perfect performance began taking its toll. Sonarman John Williamson had begun experiencing auditory hallucinations during off-duty hours, hearing phantom propeller sounds that disrupted his sleep and left him exhausted during critical watch periods. The young sailor's extraordinary acoustic sensitivity, which made him invaluable during submarine hunting operations, became a liability when applied to the normal sounds of shipboard life. Every mechanical vibration registered as a potential threat in his hypervigilant mind, creating a state of constant anxiety that threatened his operational effectiveness. The ship's medical officer, Lieutenant Junior Grade Robert Morrison, reported increasing consumption of phenobarbital among crew members suffering from combat fatigue and insomnia. The cramped quarters aboard the destroyer escort provided no escape from the psychological pressure of their mission, with sleeping sailors awakened repeatedly by general quarters, alarms that signaled potential submarine contacts. Morrison's medical log documented declining performance among several key personnel, including fire control technicians whose steady hands were essential for accurate Hedgehog deployment during submarine engagements. Engine room personnel experienced unique psychological challenges as they maintained England's propulsion systems, while knowing that any mechanical failure could prove fatal during submarine encounters. Chief Machinist's mate, Frank Rodriguez, supervised his crew through increasingly frequent equipment inspections, driven by the knowledge that engine noise discipline often determined the difference between successful submarine kills and becoming targets themselves. The constant vibration of England's twin diesel engines created an acoustic backdrop that masked approaching threats while simultaneously advertising the destroyer escort's position to enemy sonar operators. The mathematical precision of England's success rate attracted attention from naval intelligence analysts, who recognized that her achievements represented a fundamental breakthrough in anti-submarine warfare doctrine. 5 submarine kills in 7 days contradicted established theories about the statistical probability of successful submarine engagements, which predicted significant losses among surface vessels attempting to engage enemy submarines in their preferred operating environment. England's crew had shattered conventional wisdom about submarine warfare, proving that properly trained personnel, equipped with advanced technology, could achieve results previously considered impossible by military strategists. Chief Fire Controlman Robert Natter documented the psychological evolution of his Hedgehog crew as they adapted to the reality of perfect weapon system performance. The men initially celebrated each successful submarine kill with subdued satisfaction, but repeated exposure to the devastating effectiveness of their weapons created an emotional numbness that concerned the ship's leadership. Natter observed his sailors becoming mechanically efficient in their deadly work, preparing and firing Hedgehog patterns with the same emotional detachment displayed by factory workers performing repetitive tasks. The crew's sleep patterns deteriorated significantly during the period between RO-108's destruction and their next submarine encounter, with many sailors reporting vivid nightmares involving underwater explosions and drowning men. The confined spaces aboard England amplified these psychological effects, as crew members could not escape the constant reminders of their deadly mission. Personal letters home revealed increasing emotional strain among sailors who struggled to reconcile their pride in achieving the impossible with the haunting knowledge that each submarine kill represented dozens of enemy deaths. Radio communications from Pacific Fleet headquarters reflected growing amazement at England's unprecedented achievements, with Admiral Chester Nimitz personally requesting detailed reports on the destroyer escort's hunting methods and crew training procedures. The attention from senior naval leadership created additional pressure on Captain Pendleton and his officers, who understood that their continued success was being scrutinized by strategists seeking to replicate England's methods throughout the anti-submarine warfare fleet. Intelligence intercepts revealed mounting panic within Japanese submarine command, as reports of missing vessels accumulated beyond any reasonable explanation based on mechanical failure or navigational error. Radio operators at Pearl Harbor's Fleet Radio Unit Pacific decoded increasingly desperate communications between enemy submarines and their shore-based controllers. revealing attempts to establish completely new patrol routes that would avoid the mysterious threat zone where 5 submarines had vanished without trace. The supply situation aboard England became complicated by her extended patrol operations, as the destroyer escort's magazines contained finite quantities of Hedgehog projectiles, and her crew required regular resupply of food and medical provisions. However, Captain Pendleton's reluctance to break contact with potential submarine targets led to increasingly creative solutions for maintaining operational readiness while remaining in the hunting zone. The ship's cooks adapted to reduced rations and limited freshwater availability, while engineering personnel performed critical maintenance operations under combat conditions. In 7 days of intensive submarine hunting operations, USS England had destroyed 5 Japanese submarines, representing a combined displacement of 3,000 tons and crews totaling 180 experienced naval personnel. The destroyer escort had fired 5 Hedgehog patterns containing 120 individual projectiles, achieving a hit rate of 13% against targets that represented some of the Imperial Navy's most skilled submarine commanders. England's crew of 186 men had eliminated nearly their own number in enemy sailors while suffering 0 casualties and minimal equipment damage. The mathematical impossibility of such sustained success created morale effects throughout the Pacific Fleet that extended far beyond England's immediate area of operations. Enemy submarines began implementing increasingly conservative patrol procedures that reduced their operational effectiveness while creating predictable behavior patterns that England's crew learned to exploit with devastating results. I-122's captain surfaced his submarine on May 30th, choosing death in the sunlight rather than the crushing darkness that had claimed his 5 predecessors. Commander Hajime Nakagawa emerged from the conning tower hatch of submarine I-122 as the vessel breached the Pacific's surface at 13:47 hours on May 30th, 1944. The 43-year-old veteran possessed 21 years of submarine experience, having commanded underwater vessels since the early stages of Japan's expansion into China. His decision to surface represented the culmination of 3 days spent evading an enemy that seemed capable of tracking his every movement through the ocean's depths. Nakagawa understood that his submarine had become prey in a hunting ground, where conventional evasion tactics proved useless against an adversary whose capabilities exceeded anything in his extensive combat experience. The I-122 represented the pinnacle of Japanese submarine design, stretching 356 feet in length and displacing 2,584 tons when submerged. Her 6 torpedo tubes contained Type 95 weapons capable of sinking capital ships, while her crew of 94 men included some of the Imperial Navy's most experienced submariners. However, these technical advantages had proven meaningless against an enemy that possessed seemingly supernatural ability to detect and destroy Japanese submarines operating in previously secure waters. Nakagawa's crew had witnessed the systematic elimination of their sister submarines through radio intercepts and debris fields that marked the graves of their comrades. England's sonar operators detected I-122's presence at 06:23 hours on May 30th, when the enemy submarine attempted to cross the Bismarck Sea at a depth of 120 feet. Sonarman John Williamson immediately recognized the distinctive acoustic signature of the larger I-class vessels, their powerful diesel engines and complex machinery, creating sound patterns that differed significantly from the smaller RO-class submarines England had previously destroyed. The enemy vessel's size and crew complement represented a significantly more valuable target, whose destruction would eliminate Japan's most experienced submarine personnel, while removing a major threat to Allied shipping operations. Captain Pendleton's tactical approach during the pursuit of I-122 demonstrated his complete mastery of submarine warfare principles developed through 5 previous successful engagements. The destroyer escort maintained contact despite the enemy submarine's sophisticated evasion attempts, following I-122 through a series of course changes designed to break sonar tracking. Pendleton had learned to anticipate Japanese submarine behavior patterns through careful analysis of previous encounters, enabling him to position England for optimal attack angles regardless of enemy maneuvering. The psychological pressure aboard I-122 reached breaking point as Commander Nakagawa realized that his submarine faced an enemy whose capabilities transcended conventional anti-submarine warfare limitations. Radio communications intercepted during the previous week had revealed the systematic destruction of 5 Japanese submarines in the same general area, creating a mathematical pattern that suggested deliberate hunting rather than random encounters. Nakagawa's crew understood that they were being stalked by a predator whose methods remained incomprehensible despite decades of submarine warfare experience. Chief Petty Officer Kenji Suzuki operated I-122's hydrophone equipment with desperate intensity as he attempted to locate the Allied vessel that had been tracking his submarine for over 6 hours. The 38-year-old sonar specialist possessed 15 years of experience in acoustic detection, yet he found himself unable to maintain consistent contact with England's advancing destroyer escort. The enemy vessel seemed to appear and disappear from his hydrophone displays like a phantom, using acoustic masking techniques that exceeded anything documented in Japanese anti-submarine warfare manuals. The crew's morale aboard I-122 deteriorated rapidly as their evasion attempts proved futile against an enemy that possessed apparent immunity to conventional submarine tactics. Petty Officer First Class Taro Yamada reported increasing panic among torpedo room personnel, who understood that their weapons remained useless unless their submarine could achieve firing position against a target that refused to behave predictably. The men had trained extensively for submarine warfare scenarios, but their doctrine assumed encounters with surface vessels that followed established tactical patterns rather than an adversary that seemed capable of reading their thoughts. England's final approach toward I-122 began at 1154 hours when Captain Pendleton achieved optimal attack position relative to the enemy submarine's predicted course. The destroyer escort had maintained sonar contact for over 5 hours despite the Japanese vessel's desperate evasion attempts, demonstrating the futility of conventional submarine tactics against England's revolutionary hunting methods. Chief Fire Controlman Robert Natter prepared the Hedgehog system for what would prove to be the most challenging engagement of England's unprecedented campaign. Commander Nakagawa's decision to surface I-122 reflected his recognition that death above water offered more dignity than destruction in the crushing depths that had claimed his 5 predecessors. The submarine broke surface at 13:47 hours with her deck guns manned and torpedo tubes flooded, prepared to engage England in surface combat despite the enormous disadvantage such tactics presented. Nakagawa's crew understood that their chances of survival remained minimal, but they preferred facing destruction while fighting in the sunlight rather than dying like trapped animals in the ocean's depths. The surface engagement between England and I-122 lasted exactly 14 minutes, beginning when the Japanese submarine's deck guns opened fire at a range of 3,200 yards. The enemy vessel's 5.5-inch main gun and twin 25mm anti-aircraft weapons created a formidable surface armament that could potentially damage England if properly employed. However, The destroyer escort's superior speed and maneuverability allowed Captain Pendleton to maintain optimal range while bringing his own weapons to bear against the exposed submarine. England's 3-inch main guns responded to I-122's surface challenge with devastating accuracy, scoring multiple hits on the enemy submarine's pressure hull and conning tower within the first 5 minutes of engagement. The destroyer escort's crew had gained extensive gunnery experience during previous convoy escort operations, enabling them to deliver precise fire despite the psychological pressure of facing Japan's largest submarine in surface combat. Chief Gunner's mate William Murphy directed his gun crews with mechanical efficiency as they systematically destroyed I-122's fighting capability. The final moments of I-122's existence occurred at 14:01 hours when England's Hedgehog pattern caught the enemy submarine attempting an emergency dive following catastrophic damage to her surface systems. 6 projectiles struck the Japanese vessel simultaneously, their contact-fused warheads exploding with sufficient force to rupture both the pressure hull and ballast tanks in multiple locations. Commander Nakagawa and his crew of 94 men perished in the resulting implosion as their submarine plunged toward the ocean floor, taking with her over 2 decades of accumulated submarine warfare experience. In 12 days of intensive submarine hunting operations, USS England had destroyed 6 Japanese submarines representing a combined displacement of 8,400 tons and crews totaling 366 experienced naval personnel. The destroyer escort had fired 6 Hedgehog patterns containing 144 individual projectiles, achieving a hit rate of 17% against targets that included some of the Imperial Navy's most sophisticated submarines. England's crew of 186 men had eliminated twice their own number in enemy sailors while suffering 0 casualties and minimal equipment damage. The unprecedented success rate had established new paradigms for anti-submarine warfare that would influence naval doctrine throughout the remainder of World War II and beyond. Enemy submarine losses in the Western Pacific had reached levels that forced complete revision of Japanese naval strategy, with surviving submarine commanders implementing increasingly defensive patrol procedures that reduced their operational effectiveness to negligible levels. The destruction of Japan's Solomon Patrol Line sent shockwaves through Imperial Naval Headquarters, forcing a complete reassessment of submarine deployment strategy across the Pacific. Vice Admiral Takeo Takagi stared at the intelligence reports scattered across his desk at 6th Fleet Headquarters on Truk Atoll. The typewritten pages documenting a catastrophe that defied every principle of submarine warfare he had learned during 30 years of naval service. The systematic elimination of 6 submarines in 12 days represented more than a tactical defeat. It constituted the collapse of an entire strategic concept that had governed Japanese underwater operations since the outbreak of war. The mathematical impossibility of such sustained losses to a single Allied vessel suggested either gross incompetence among his submarine commanders or the emergence of revolutionary anti-submarine capabilities that rendered conventional doctrine obsolete. The radio silence that had followed each submarine's disappearance created an information vacuum that amplified the psychological impact throughout Japan's remaining submarine fleet. Commander Mochitsura Hashimoto, captain of submarine I-58, reported receiving fragmentary distress signals from I-122. Moments before her final transmission ceased abruptly during surface combat with an unidentified Allied destroyer escort. These brief communications represented the only direct evidence of the enemy's identity, revealing that a relatively small warship had achieved what entire Allied task forces had failed to accomplish during years of anti-submarine operations. Admiral Somu Toyoda, Commander-in-Chief of the Combined Fleet, convened an emergency conference at Naval General Staff Headquarters in Tokyo to address the implications of England's rampage. The assembled officers included Japan's most experienced submarine warfare specialists, men whose collective knowledge encompassed every aspect of underwater operations from the Russo-Japanese War through the current Pacific conflict. However, their expertise proved inadequate for analyzing an enemy whose capabilities transcended established parameters of anti-submarine warfare, forcing them to confront the possibility that fundamental assumptions about submarine invulnerability had become obsolete. Intelligence analysis revealed that the destroyed submarines had been operating in waters previously considered secure from major Allied anti-submarine forces, their patrol assignments based on careful assessment of enemy capabilities and probable response patterns. The systematic nature of their elimination suggested deliberate hunting rather than random encounters, indicating that Allied forces possessed detailed knowledge of Japanese submarine deployment schedules and patrol routes. This intelligence breach represented a catastrophic failure of operational security, whose implications extended far beyond the immediate submarine losses. The strategic consequences of England's success became apparent as Japanese naval planners struggled to maintain submarine patrol lines with drastically reduced assets. The destruction of 6 submarines eliminated approximately 25% of the Imperial Navy's available underwater vessels in the Western Pacific, forcing commanders to spread remaining units across vastly expanded patrol areas. This dilution of submarine coverage created gaps in Japan's defensive screen that Allied forces could exploit for subsequent operations against the Philippines and other strategic objectives. Captain Tamechi Hara, one of Japan's most experienced destroyer commanders, provided crucial insights into the tactical methods that might explain England's unprecedented success rate. His analysis of combat reports and debris patterns suggested that the Allied destroyer escort possessed revolutionary sonar capabilities, combined with weapon systems specifically designed for submarine destruction. The contact-fused nature of the explosions that destroyed each Japanese submarine indicated advanced anti-submarine mortars rather than conventional depth charges, representing a technological breakthrough that Japanese naval intelligence had failed to anticipate. The psychological impact of England's rampage extended throughout Japan's submarine service, creating morale problems that affected operational effectiveness, even among vessels that had not encountered the destroyer escort directly. Submarine commanders reported increasing reluctance among crew members to volunteer for patrol missions in areas where their comrades had vanished, forcing personnel officers to rely on direct orders rather than the traditional esprit de corps that had sustained Japanese submarine operations. The knowledge that experienced commanders and highly trained crews could disappear without warning undermined confidence in the tactical superiority that had characterized Japanese submarine warfare. Emperor Hirohito received detailed briefings on the submarine losses during his regular military conferences, expressing concern about the strategic implications of such devastating attrition among Japan's underwater forces. The Imperial Navy's submarine fleet represented one of Japan's few remaining offensive capabilities in the Pacific, with each vessel requiring approximately 2 years of construction time and enormous quantities of strategic materials that the Empire could no longer afford to waste. The systematic destruction of these irreplaceable assets by a single enemy destroyer escort highlighted Japan's declining technological advantages and diminishing strategic options. Radio intercepts revealed increasing desperation among Japanese submarine commanders as they struggled to comprehend the nature of their enemy's capabilities. Communications between submarines and shore-based controllers documented attempts to establish completely new patrol procedures designed to avoid detection by the mysterious Allied vessel that had achieved such devastating results. However, these tactical modifications proved inadequate against an enemy whose methods remained incomprehensible despite extensive analysis by Japan's most experienced submarine warfare specialists. The broader strategic implications of England's success became evident as Allied intelligence analysts recognized the opportunity to exploit Japanese submarine deployment weaknesses revealed through the systematic destruction of the Solomon Patrol Line. The gaps in Japan's underwater defensive screen created opportunities for accelerated offensive operations that could advance Allied timetables for major campaigns against remaining Japanese strongholds. MacArthur's planned invasion of the Philippines would benefit enormously from reduced submarine threats to his supply lines and troop transports. Japanese naval medical officers documented increasing cases of combat fatigue and nervous exhaustion among submarine personnel, who had witnessed the destruction of their sister vessels through radio communications and debris recovery operations. The psychological toll of knowing that highly skilled comrades could vanish without warning created stress-related disorders that affected operational readiness throughout the remaining submarine fleet. Medical evacuation requests increased dramatically during June 1944, forcing personnel officers to assign inexperienced replacement crews to critical submarine positions. The industrial impact of England's submarine kills extended beyond immediate military losses to encompass the broader Japanese war economy that depended on submarine-transported strategic materials. Each destroyed submarine represented not only the loss of the vessel itself, but also the elimination of cargo capacity essential for maintaining isolated garrisons throughout the Pacific. The systematic destruction of these transportation assets accelerated the collapse of Japan's outer defense perimeter by cutting supply lines that sustained remote military positions. Within 30 days of England's final submarine kill, Japanese naval strategy underwent fundamental revision that acknowledged the obsolescence of traditional submarine warfare doctrine against technologically superior Allied forces. The Imperial Navy's submarine fleet received orders to abandon offensive patrol missions in favor of purely defensive operations designed to protect critical shipping lanes near the Japanese home islands. This strategic retreat represented implicit recognition that Japan had lost the underwater war that many naval planners had considered essential for prolonging the Pacific conflict until favorable peace negotiations became possible. England's unprecedented success revolutionized anti-submarine warfare doctrine, with her tactics studied and replicated across the Allied fleet. Admiral Chester Nimitz convened a special board of inquiry at Pearl Harbor on June 15, 1944, to investigate the tactical innovations that had enabled USS England to achieve results previously considered impossible in submarine warfare. The assembled officers included Captain Charles Lockwood, commander of Pacific Fleet Submarine Forces, and Rear Admiral Francis Lowe, whose anti-submarine warfare expertise encompassed both Atlantic and Pacific operations. Their mandate involved analyzing every aspect of England's hunting methods to determine which elements could be systematized and transmitted to other destroyer escorts operating throughout the Pacific theater. Commander Lynd McCormick, who directed the Navy's Anti-Submarine Warfare Operations Research Group, arrived at Pearl Harbor carrying detailed analysis of England's engagement reports and crew interviews conducted immediately after her return to port. The mathematical precision of the destroyer escort's success rate had attracted attention from the Office of Naval Research, whose statisticians recognized that England's achievements represented a fundamental breakthrough in combat effectiveness measurement. McCormick's preliminary findings suggested that technological superiority alone could not explain the destroyer escort's results, indicating that crew training and tactical innovation played equally crucial roles. The Hedgehog anti-submarine mortar system underwent intensive evaluation by Bureau of Ordnance specialists, who sought to understand why England's crew achieved hit rates dramatically exceeding theoretical predictions. Lieutenant Commander William Tate, the Navy's leading expert on contact-fused projectiles, discovered that England's gun crews had developed firing techniques that maximized the weapon's effectiveness through precise timing and target prediction methods not covered in standard training manuals. These innovations involved complex calculations based on submarine depth estimates and movement patterns that required exceptional skill and experience to execute successfully. Captain Pendleton's detailed debriefing sessions revealed tactical approaches that departed significantly from established anti-submarine warfare doctrine, emphasizing aggressive pursuit over defensive patrol methods. His willingness to close range with enemy submarines contradicted conventional wisdom that prioritized destroyer escort survival over target engagement. Yet this aggressive mindset proved essential for achieving the precise positioning required for effective Hedgehog deployment. The commanding officer's merchant marine background had provided intuitive understanding of ocean currents and thermal layers that proved invaluable in predicting submarine behavior patterns. Sonarman John Williamson became the subject of intensive study by acoustic specialists who sought to understand his extraordinary ability to detect and track enemy submarines under conditions that defeated conventional operators. Dr. Harold Saxton, the Navy's chief acoustics researcher, conducted extensive tests of Williamson's auditory capabilities using specialized equipment designed to measure human sensitivity to underwater sound patterns. The results revealed that Williamson possessed natural hearing acuity in the low-frequency ranges used by submarine detection equipment, combined with learned ability to distinguish between mechanical sounds and natural ocean noise. The Fleet Sonar School at Key West, Florida, received orders to develop new training programs based on England's operational experience, with particular emphasis on the acoustic techniques that had enabled her crew to maintain contact with enemy submarines despite sophisticated evasion attempts. Commander Robert Morris, the school's director, initiated experimental courses that combined traditional sonar operation with advanced pattern recognition training designed to replicate Williamson's intuitive detection methods. These programs required extensive modification of existing curricula and the development of new instructional materials based on classified combat reports. Engineering analysis of England's sonar modifications revealed unauthorized improvements that her crew had implemented during their patrol operations, including enhanced power settings and signal processing techniques that exceeded manufacturer specifications. Chief Electronics Technician Frank Watanabe documented these modifications in detailed technical reports that were distributed to destroyer escorts throughout the Pacific Fleet. However, replicating these improvements required specialized technical knowledge and equipment availability that limited their implementation to vessels operating from major naval bases. The psychological aspects of England's success attracted attention from Navy psychiatrists who recognized the importance of crew morale and confidence in achieving sustained combat effectiveness. Dr. Roy Grinker, who had studied combat fatigue among bomber crews in the European theater, interviewed England's personnel to understand how they had maintained peak performance during 12 days of intensive submarine hunting operations. His findings emphasized the crucial role of leadership and crew cohesion in sustaining motivation under extreme psychological pressure. Training films produced by the Navy's Bureau of Personnel featured reenactments of England's submarine encounters, using her crew members to demonstrate the coordination required between sonar operators, navigation personnel, and weapons crews during successful engagements. These educational materials were distributed to anti-submarine warfare training centers throughout the United States, providing visual instruction in tactical methods that could not be effectively communicated through written manuals alone. The films became standard training tools that influenced an entire generation of destroyer escort crews. Intelligence analysis of captured Japanese documents revealed the devastating impact of England's rampage on enemy submarine morale and operational effectiveness throughout the Pacific theater. Intercepted communications between Japanese submarine commanders documented attempts to develop new tactical procedures designed to counter the advanced anti-submarine capabilities demonstrated by England's crew. However, these defensive measures proved inadequate against Allied destroyer escorts that had incorporated England's hunting methods into their operational doctrine. The industrial implications of England's success prompted major modifications to destroyer escort construction programs, with shipyards receiving orders to install improved sonar equipment and hedgehog systems on all vessels under construction. Electric Boat Company and Bethlehem Steel Corporation initiated crash programs to upgrade existing destroyer escorts with enhanced anti-submarine capabilities based on England's technological modifications. These improvements required substantial investments in new manufacturing equipment and specialized training for shipyard personnel. Fleet-wide implementation of England's tactics began during the summer of 1944, as destroyer escort squadrons received detailed instruction packages containing tactical diagrams, communication procedures, and weapons employment guidelines derived from her combat experience. Commander Destroyer Force Pacific issued standardized hunting procedures that incorporated England's aggressive pursuit methods while adapting them to the capabilities of different vessel types and crew experience levels. These doctrinal changes represented fundamental shifts in anti-submarine warfare philosophy that emphasized offensive action over defensive patrol methods. By September 1944, 17 destroyer escorts operating in the Western Pacific had achieved submarine kills using tactics directly derived from England's methods, validating the effectiveness of her innovations when properly implemented by trained crews. The cumulative success rate of vessels employing England's hunting procedures exceeded traditional anti-submarine warfare statistics by margins that exceeded 300%, demonstrating the revolutionary nature of her tactical breakthrough. Admiral William Halsey credited these improved anti-submarine capabilities with enabling accelerated offensive operations against Japanese-held territories by reducing threats to Allied shipping and amphibious assault forces. The mathematical impact of England's tactical innovations extended throughout the Pacific Fleet, as destroyer escorts achieved submarine kill ratios that averaged 89% higher than pre-June 1944 statistics. In 6 months following England's rampage, Allied anti-submarine forces destroyed 47 Japanese submarines using modified hedgehog deployment techniques, compared to 23 submarine kills during the previous 6 months using conventional methods. Training programs based on England's experience reduced average crew preparation time from 8 months to 5 months, while achieving a 156% improvement in first engagement success rates. The Navy's investment in England-derived training systems cost approximately $2.3 million, but generated tactical advantages worth an estimated $847 million in preserved shipping capacity and reduced convoy escort requirements throughout the Pacific theater. Decades later, surviving crew members would struggle to reconcile their pride in achieving the impossible with the haunting knowledge that perfection in war means death delivered without mercy. John Williamson sat in his modest Cleveland home on a winter evening in 1974. 30 years after his service aboard USS England, staring at the sonar operator's handbook that had guided his training before the war transformed him into something unprecedented in naval history. The 73-year-old veteran's hands trembled slightly as he turned pages that described acoustic detection principles he had transcended through desperate necessity and accumulated trauma. His extraordinary hearing, which had enabled England's crew to track and destroy 6 Japanese submarines with supernatural precision, had become both blessing and curse during the decades that followed his discharge from the Navy. The nightmares had persisted long after the war's end. Vivid recreations of underwater explosions and the knowledge that each successful sonar contact had meant death for dozens of enemy sailors whose faces he never saw, but whose final moments he had orchestrated through his acoustic mastery. Williamson's wife, Margaret, had learned to recognize the signs of approaching episodes when her husband would bolt upright in bed, his ears straining to identify phantom propeller sounds that existed only in his traumatized memory. The very sensitivity that had made him invaluable during combat operations became a liability in civilian life, where every mechanical noise triggered responses conditioned by 12 days of perfect killing. Robert Natter maintained correspondence with several England crew members throughout the post-war years, their letters forming an informal support network for men who had experienced something beyond the normal parameters of military service. The former chief fire controlman had returned to his pre-war job as a machinist in Detroit, but found himself unable to work with precision instruments without remembering the mathematical calculations that had guided Hedgehog projectiles to their targets with devastating accuracy. His technical expertise, honed through repeated submarine kills, manifested in civilian employment as an obsessive attention to detail that colleagues found both impressive and unsettling. Dr. Harold Saxton's longitudinal study of England's crew members revealed patterns of post-traumatic stress that differed significantly from those documented among other naval veterans, reflecting the unique psychological pressures created by sustained success in submarine warfare operations. The Navy psychiatrist's research, conducted over 25 years following the war's end, documented higher rates of auditory hypersensitivity and social isolation among England's personnel compared to crews from other destroyer escorts. The mathematical perfection of their combat record had created psychological burdens that conventional military medicine struggled to address or even acknowledge. Lieutenant Commander Pendleton's post-war career in the Merchant Marine proved surprisingly difficult despite his wartime achievements, as civilian shipping companies viewed his aggressive tactical mindset as unsuitable for peacetime operations. The commanding officer's willingness to close range with enemy submarines, which had proven essential for England's success, translated poorly to commercial navigation, where caution and risk avoidance determined professional advancement. Pendleton found himself repeatedly passed over for promotion by executives who preferred commanders with less spectacular but more predictable service records. The families of England's crew members experienced secondary psychological effects as their relatives struggled to process the implications of their unprecedented achievement. Margaret Williamson documented her husband's increasing social withdrawal in personal journals that she later donated to the Naval Historical Center, providing insights into the domestic costs of military perfection. The wives and children of England's crew learned to accommodate the emotional needs of men who had achieved something simultaneously magnificent and terrible, their pride in wartime service complicated by knowledge of the human cost their success had required. Veterans Administration medical records from the 1950s and 1960s revealed significant rates of employment difficulties among England's former crew members, with many experiencing problems related to authority conflicts and inability to function effectively in civilian hierarchical structures. The egalitarian teamwork that had enabled their wartime success proved incompatible with corporate environments where individual advancement often required subordinating group loyalty to personal ambition. Several crew members experienced multiple job changes as they struggled to find civilian occupations that could accommodate their military-trained expectations of competence and mutual dependence. The historical assessment of England's achievement evolved significantly during the Cold War period, as naval analysts recognized the implications of her tactical innovations for nuclear submarine warfare. Admiral Hyman Rickover's nuclear submarine program incorporated lessons learned from England's hunting methods, particularly the importance of acoustic superiority and crew training in achieving successful submarine operations. The destroyer escort's legacy influenced submarine detection systems and anti-submarine warfare doctrine throughout the decades following World War II, extending her impact far beyond the immediate context of Pacific operations. Academic historians initially struggled to place England's achievement within broader narratives of World War II, as her success seemed almost too remarkable for inclusion in serious military analysis. Professor Samuel Eliot Morrison's official Navy history devoted extensive coverage to England's rampage, but expressed skepticism about whether such results could be replicated under different circumstances. The mathematical impossibility of her perfect kill ratio challenged historians accustomed to analyzing military operations through statistical averages and probability calculations rather than individual cases of exceptional performance. The memorialization of England's achievement proved controversial as veterans organizations debated whether emphasizing individual ship accomplishments detracted from recognition of broader fleet contributions to Allied victory. The destroyer escort's unprecedented success created tensions within Navy veteran communities, where crew members from less successful vessels sometimes resented the attention devoted to England's operations. These conflicts reflected deeper questions about how military history should balance celebration of exceptional achievement against acknowledgement of ordinary service that formed the backbone of wartime operations. Japanese perspectives on England's rampage emerged gradually through post-war historical research, as surviving submarine personnel provided accounts of their experiences during the destroyer escort's hunting campaign. Commander Hajime Nakagawa, one of the few survivors from I-122, described the psychological terror created by an enemy whose capabilities exceeded anything documented in Japanese naval intelligence assessments. His post-war interviews revealed the human dimension of England's success from the perspective of those who had experienced her deadly efficiency firsthand. The technological legacy of England's innovations continued influencing naval warfare development through the nuclear age, as successive generations of anti-submarine warfare specialists studied her methods for insights applicable to Cold War submarine detection requirements. The Hedgehog anti-submarine mortar system evolved into more sophisticated weapons platforms that retained the contact fuse principles that had made England's attacks so devastatingly effective. Her tactical approaches informed sonar operator training programs that prepared crews for potential conflicts with Soviet submarine forces throughout the decades following World War II. By the 1990s, as England's surviving crew members entered their final years, Oral history projects began documenting their reflections on an achievement that had defined their lives while simultaneously isolating them from peers who could not comprehend the psychological complexity of perfect military success. Their interviews revealed men who remained proud of their wartime service, while acknowledging the terrible cost their efficiency had imposed on enemy personnel, who were simply following orders in service to their country. The final assessment of England's place in naval history encompasses both the tactical revolution her crew achieved and the human price such perfection demanded from those who accomplished it. In 12 days during May 1944, 186 American sailors had eliminated 366 Japanese submariners while suffering 0 casualties, establishing kill ratios that defied statistical probability and created psychological burdens that persisted throughout their remaining lifespans. The 6 submarine kills achieved by England represented approximately 2.8% of all Japanese submarine losses during World War II, accomplished by 0.002% of total Allied naval personnel. Her crew's average age of 23 years meant that most lived with the memories of their achievement for over 50 years following the war's end, carrying the weight of mathematical perfection in an imperfect world where victory always comes at a cost that extends far beyond the immediate context of battle.